Okay, I have some more questions that wanted to be asked. They asked the question, um, well, mostly the questions have to do with why would anybody really want to advance their consciousness if they're not going to live like a very wealthy person in opulence, like you're a prince or something. Um, This is probably the biggest reason people give up on advancing their consciousness is because if there's not an ego payoff, because that's what this really is. I want to have the best car. I want to have a great house. I don't want to have any worries about money. I want to have perfect health, and I want to have a perfect body, a perfect wife, and a perfect family, and, a perfect business. So these are all ego desires. And advancing your personality, unless people lie to you and tell you, these things are all yours. And some of these teachings are all about appealing to your ego. If there's no benefit for your ego, um, why would people ever want to advance their consciousness? Because they're pretty much ego people. Well, one thing that happens, and you shouldn't listen to this, because if you're an ego person, your ego's going to learn it, and then they're going to go, I already heard this one. But if you hear the story about how difficult it is to actually be born human, and the way the story goes is um, it's really hard even to be born human on planet Earth because there's so many spirits out there and there's only so many babies. I mean, there's 7 billion people here, isn't it? No, but apparently there's like way, way, way more spirits that want to incarnate as human than there are babies born. But if you're lucky enough to get born a human, well, then you have to go through another hoop, and that's to hear about enlightenment in kind of a Buddhist sense. Because a lot of people on the planet never hear about enlightenment, never hear about Buddhism. Um, let's just stick with that because that's the way the story goes. I don't want to talk about Christianity and Christ consciousness and all that because that's not part of this. The story is it's really hard to be born human, and it is very rare to even hear the word enlightenment. And then, out of those people that hear the word enlightenment, the ones that actually pursue enlightenment, which is really raising your consciousness, ascending to higher levels on the scale of human consciousness, very few actually participate in that. So, why is it that there's so few sages, real, bona fide masters on planet Earth? Because people, when they're born as humans, develop a really strong ego, and the ego needs don't align with advancing your consciousness. They align pretty much with what I told you at the start. So, Dr. Hawkins of consciousness research said that if you're just a householder, in other words, you're married and you have a couple of kids and you live in a house and you bring up kids, you can expect to get on average 4 points on the scale of consciousness. So let's say you're in the 300s on the scale of consciousness. Well, there's 100 points between 300 and 400. And 400 isn't enlightened, it's just more rational, more scientific, intellectual. So, but if you start at 300, at the end of this lifetime, you're at 304. Another lifetime, 308, 312, 316, 320. You see how slow It is to raise your consciousness by being a householder, just an average Joe, really, really slow. So, is that a kick in the ass? I think it's a kick in the ass because who wants to spend, you do the math, how many lifetimes is that just in the 300 level on the scale of consciousness? Hell of a lot. And then you get into the 400s, and the 400s are even more difficult to advance through than the 300s because the intellectual mind of a scientific person is very sticky when it comes to scientific beliefs, which have to be let go if you want to raise yourself up into the 500s, the levels of love, or 600s, levels of peace, or 700s, levels of real enlightenment. So you really have to ditch your ego right from the get-go if you want to hit enlightenment in one lifetime. And this is where the ego, the ears perk up. What? You're telling me I can not have to do all these lifetimes and lifetimes, 4 points at a lifetime? The ears perk up. And this is something the ego goes, oh, this is better than a Lamborghini. I can become enlightened. Whatever that means. It's super rare. It's super rare. And I can do it. And I got to give up all. It doesn't matter. I don't need the Lamborghini. I want enlightenment. And it's because the juice for the ego of something that's so elite. I mean, this is more elite than being a Hollywood actor. So rare to be a Hollywood actor. It's even more rare to become enlightened on this planet. Jump up to level 700 on the scale of human consciousness. Really, really rare. Dr. Hawkins said at any one time, maybe 6 or 7 people at the level of 700 and above on the whole planet out of 7 billion, 8 billion people. 7 or 8. So I've done this before, but this is something that the ego, for some people, will, some of these egos will go, we'll do it. Because the ego thinks it's getting something incredibly rare. The pearl of great price is what it was called in Asia or something. It's just like, because the ego loves prestige. It doesn't matter if it's going to be poor. If I'm going to be able to be the one out of the 7 sages on the planet, out of 7 billion people, I want it. I want it. It's more rare than a Tesla. It's more rare than a Lamborghini or a Maserati. It's more rare than being Tom Cruise. But now that you've heard this, your ego is going to say, well, it's kind of a scam. Why? Well, because is your ego ever enlightened? I thought you had to kind of lose your ego in order to be in enlightened states. Could be. I don't want to really ruin it for your ego because I really want you to do, attempt to become enlightened in one lifetime. Sudden enlightenment is another one. What's the sudden enlightenment? You got to go and talk to some Chinese Zen master somewhere in Tibet in order to figure that one out, or maybe by luck. Dr. Hawkins said, your intention to become enlightened is real. And once you have set your intention upon that, and that is the number one intention, it's not like you got 12 things on your bucket list. It's like, I just stripped it down to one thing, and I want to become enlightened in one lifetime. And that's all I care about, just the one thing. Then enlightenment will pull you to it. That's exact words that Dr. Hawkins says. Is it true? I believe it's so. So if you want to become one of the enlightened sages, ditch all the egoic things, ditch all the cars, ditch all the houses, ditch the wife, ditch all the status, and go for it. And will you make it? Dr. Hawkins said, everyone else, your goal should be to hit 540 in one lifetime, because he said that's really doable. 540 is unconditional love. He said it's really doable. It's not difficult. maybe the seven, I don't know. I'm not at 700. But he said, go for 540 in one lifetime. You do that, well, he says that's good. And, he was the teacher. I'm just repeating what he said. But if you still want to hit enlightenment in one lifetime, I can't say whether it'll happen or not. But if you don't try, if you don't set the intention to do it in one lifetime, what's the chances of it happening? You don't see me, and I don't see you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And usually when I'm talking like this, because I do various characters, I'm kind of a character actor, I'm usually called Harry Weaver, the narrator. Thank you again.